Chapter 12. Two news items rated headlines in the Tuesday morning edition of the Daily Fluxion. A valuable gold dagger, attributed to Cellini, had disappeared from the art museum, although its absence had been noted by a guard more than a week ago. The matter was not reported to the police until a Fluxion reporter discovered that the rare treasure was missing from the Florentine room. Museum officials gave no satisfactory explanation for the delay. The other item reported a fatal accident. An artist plunged to death Monday night at the Penniman School of Fine Art during an audience participation program called A Happening. He was a sculptor known professionally as 9024685, whose real name was Joseph Hibber. Hibber was perched on a high scaffold in the darkened room when unruly activity on the floor below caused a near accident to one of the mammoth props in the show. Eyewitnesses reported that Hibber attempted to save the object from falling on the spectators. In the effort, he apparently lost his footing, falling 26 feet to a concrete floor. Mrs. Sadie Bookwalter, wife of Franz Bookwalter, a faculty member, was injured by a flying doorknob when the object crashed. Her condition was described as satisfactory. Some 300 students, faculty members, and art patrons attending the benefit event witnessed the accident. Quillerin threw the newspaper on the bar at the press club that afternoon, when Arch Riker met him for a 5:30 pick-me-up. "Plunged to his death," said Quillerin, "or was pushed." "You've got a criminous mind," said Arch. "Isn't one murder on your beat enough to keep you happy?" "You don't know what I know." "Let's have it. Who was this character?" "A beatnik who happened to like Zoe Lambreth. And she was pretty fond of him, although you'd find this hard to believe if you could see the guy. A nature boy straight from the city dump." "You never know about women," said Arch. "And yet, I've got to admit the boy had possibilities." "So who pushed him?" "Well, there's this woman sculptor, Butchie Bolton, who seemed to resent him. I think Butchie was jealous of this beatnik's friendship with Zoe, and jealous of him professionally. He enjoyed more critical success than she did. Butchie also had a crush on Zoe." "Oh, one of those." "Zoe was trying to brush her off, subtly, but Butchie is as subtle as a bulldog. And here's an interesting point. Both Butchie and Nino, the deceased, had serious grudges against Zoe's husband. Suppose one of them killed Earl Lambreth. Did Butchie consider Nino a competitor for Zoe's attention and push him off the scaffold last night? The whole crew rushed out on those flimsy boards to stop the thing from crashing. Butchie would have had a beautiful opportunity." "You seem to know more than the police." "I don't have any answers, just questions. And here's another one. Who stole the painting of a ballet dancer from Earl Lambreth's office? Last weekend, I suddenly remembered it was missing on the night of the murder. I told Zoe, and she reported it to the police." "You've been a lousy boy. No wonder you haven't finished that profile on Halape." "And one more question. Who stole the dagger at the museum? And why are they being so cagey about it?" "Do you have any more yarns?" asked Arch. "Or can I go home to my wife and kiddies?" "Go home. You're a lousy audience. Here comes a couple of guys who'll be interested." Odd Bunsen and Lodge Kendall were walking through the bar, single file. "Hey, Jim," said Odd. "Did you write that piece about the missing dagger at the museum?" "Yeah." "They've found it. I went up and got some shots of it. The picture desk thought people would like to see what the thing looked like, after all the hullabaloo you stirred up." "Where'd they find it?" "In the safe in the education department. One of the instructors was writing a piece on Florentine art for some magazine, and he took the dagger out of the case to examine. Then he went off to a convention somewhere and parked it in the safe." "Oh," said Quillerin. His mustache drooped. "Well, that solves one of your problems," Arch told him. He turned to the police reporter. Anything new in the Lambeth case? A major clue just fizzled out, said Kendall. The police found a valuable painting that Lambeth's wife said was missing. Where'd they find it? Quillerin demanded. In the stockroom of the gallery, filed under G. Oh, said Quillerin. Arch slapped him on the back. As a detective, Jim, you're a great art writer. Why don't you bear down on that Halape profile and leave crime to the police? I'm going home. Arch left the press club, and Odd Bunsen and Lodge Kendall drifted away, and Quillerin sat alone, peering unhappily into his tomato juice. Bruno, wiping the bar, said with his wise smile, You want another Bloody Mary without vodka, lime, Worcestershire, or Tabasco? No, snapped Quillerin. The bartender lingered. He tidied up the bar. He gave Quillerin another paper napkin. Finally, he said, Would you like to see a couple of my presidential portraits? Quillerin glowered at him. I've finished Van Buren, said Bruno, and I've got him and John Quincy Adams here under the bar. Not tonight. I'm not in the mood. I don't know anybody else who makes collage portraits out of whiskey labels, Bruno persisted. Look, I don't care if you make mosaic portraits out of used olive pits. I don't want to look at them tonight. You're beginning to sound like Mount Clemens, said Bruno. I've changed my mind about that drink, said Quillerin. I'll take one. Make it a scotch, straight. Bruno shrugged and began filling the order in slow motion. And snap it up, said Quillerin. Over the loudspeaker came a muffled voice that he did not hear. Mr. Quillerin, said Bruno, I think they're paging you. Quillerin listened, wiped his mustache, and in bad humor went to the telephone. A soft voice said, Mr. Quillerin, I hope I'm not intruding, but I wonder if you have any plans for dinner tonight. No, I haven't, he said, shifting gears. Would you come out and have dinner with me at the house? I'm feeling blue, and it would help if I could talk with someone who is understanding. I promise not to dwell on my troubles. We'll talk about pleasant things. I'll grab a cab and be right there. On the way out of the press club, Quillerin threw Bruno $1. Drink the scotch yourself, he said. When Quillerin returned home from Zoe's house sometime after midnight, he was in a congenial mood. The night was bitter cold, and yet he felt warm. He gave a quarter to a frozen-looking panhandler shuffling down Blenheim Place, and he whistled a tune as he unlocked the outer door of number 26. Even before he inserted the second key in the inner door, he could hear a wail from Coco in the hall. Ha, fair weather friend, he said to the cat. You snubbed me yesterday. Don't expect a game of Sparrow tonight, old fellow. Coco was sitting on the bottom step in a tall posture. No prancing, no ankle rubbing. He was strictly business. He spoke again urgently. Quillerin looked at his watch. The cat should have been asleep at this hour, curled on the refrigerator cushion in Mount Clemens's apartment. But there he was, wide awake, and speaking in long, loud terms. It was not the complaining whine he used when dinner was slightly delayed, nor the scolding tone he assumed when dinner was unforgivably late. It was a cry of desperation. Quiet, Coco. You'll wake up the house, Quillerin said in a hushed voice. Coco lowered his volume, but persisted in the urgency of his message. He stalked back and forth on taut legs, rubbing against the newel post. What's the matter, Coco? What are you trying to say? The cat's sleek side ground against the newel post, as if to gouge out chunks of fur. Quillerin reached down and stroked the arched back. The silky fur had become strangely coarse and bristling. At the touch of the hand, Coco bounded up 5 or 6 stairs, then lowered his head and twisted his neck until he could rub the back of his ears against the front edge of a tread. "Are you locked out, Coco? Let's go up and see." Immediately, the cat scampered to the top of the flight, with the man following. "The door's open, Coco," Quillerin whispered. "Go in. Go to sleep." The cat squeezed through the narrow opening, and Quillerin was halfway downstairs again when the wailing resumed. Coco had come out and was rubbing his head violently against the door jamb. "You can't keep that up all night. Come on home with me. I'll find you a snack." Quillerin grabbed the cat under the middle and carried him to his own apartment, where he tossed him lightly on the sofa. But Coco was gone again in a white blur of speed, flying up the stairs and wailing desperately from the top. At that point, Quillerin's mustache quivered, without explanation. What was this all about? Without another word, he followed the cat upstairs. First, he knocked on the open door. When there was no answer, he went in. The living room was dark. As he pressed the switch, all the hidden spotlights flicked their tiny beams on paintings and objects of art. Coco was quiet now, watching Quillerin's feet as they walked through the living room, into the dining alcove, then out again. The heavily draped and carpeted rooms had a stifling hush. When the feet stopped moving, Coco rushed off down the long hall to the kitchen. The feet followed. Bedroom and bathroom doors stood open. Quillerin turned on the kitchen light. "What is it, you devil?" The cat was rubbing against the back door that led to the fire escape. "If you just want to go out, I'll wring your neck. Is that what you want?" Coco rose on his hind feet and pawed at the doorknob. "Well, I'm not taking you out. Where's your roommate? Let him take you out. Besides, it's too cold for cats out there." Quillerin switched off the kitchen light and started back down the long hallway, only to have Coco come racing after him with a chesty growl. The cat threw himself at the man's legs. Quillerin's mustache sent him another message. He returned to the kitchen, turned on the light, and took the flashlight from the broom closet. He reached for the night latch on the back door and found it unlocked. Strange, he thought. Opening the door, he met a blast of wintry air, crackling cold. There was a wall switch just inside the door, and he flicked it with a finger. But the exterior light made only a sick puddle of yellow on the upper landing. Quillerin thumbed the flashlight, and its powerful beam leaped about the scene below. It explored the 3 brick walls. It studied the closed gate. It crept over the brick paving until it pounced on the sprawled body. The long, dark, spidery body of George Bonifield Mount Clemens. Quillerin made his way cautiously down the icy treads of the wooden staircase. He flashed the center beam of the flashlight on the side of the face. Mount Clemens was lying cheek to the pavement, his body hunched. No doubt about it. He was dead. The alley was deserted. The night was quiet. There was a fragrance of lime peel. And within the patio, the only movement was a pale shadow just beyond the flashlight's range. It moved in circles. It was the cat, behaving oddly, performing some private ritual, with back arched and tail stiff and ears laid back. Cao Ko Kung walked around and around and around. Quillerin grabbed the cat in one arm and got up the wooden staircase as fast as the icy treads would permit. At the telephone, his finger hesitated over the dial, but he called the police first, and after that, the night city editor of the Daily Fluxion. Then he sat down to wait, composing his own wry versions of appropriate headlines for tomorrow's paper. First to arrive at Blenheim Place were 2 officers in a patrol car. Quillerin told them, "You can't reach the patio from the front of the house. You have to go upstairs through his apartment and down the fire escape, or else go around the block and come in the alley gate. It may be locked." "Who lives in the downstairs rear?" they asked. "No one. It's used for storage." The officers tried the door of the rear apartment and found it locked. They went upstairs and down the fire escape. Quillerin told them, "At first I thought he'd fallen down the steps. They're treacherous. But he's lying too far from the bottom." "Looks like a body wound," they said. "Looks like it might have been a knife." Upstairs, the cat arched his back and made long legs and stepped lightly in a pattern of ever-narrowing circles.